How Rick and Morty became irrelevant. It should say Rick and Morty was destroyed by including women in the process. They ended up getting female writers in. The female writers sucked. And guess what? They were also hostile to the men who worked there. Same old story. Now we'll get into it. Let's hear it.
The TV show itself? Well, because its fan base was bigger than ever, it put enormous pressure on Roiland and Harmon to make the third season their best one yet. In an October interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Justin revealed that the team had started receiving several scripts from female writers for the upcoming season, which had never happened before. As
Yeah, you see, because women don't like guys. They don't like these male nerds. But what? But they do like their status. These guys gain status, they they gain fame, and then the female writers showed up at the door. We want a piece.
he put it, we've gone from having 0 spec scripts in the running from female candidates to having 5 or 6 of them. So it's looking very likely that season 3 will have 1, potentially 2 gals in the room.
Why? Just because women have shown interest doesn't mean they're any good. Matter of fact, you'll see that they aren't any good. So these male nerds just said, we want women around, period. We're willing to sacrifice everything, our careers, our reputations, just to have women around. So typical.
Whether or not this excuse of having never received spec scripts from women during the first 2 seasons was true or not,
What do you mean excuse, you little asshole? What's your name? The gamer from Mars? It's not an excuse. These guys weren't keeping women out. These women weren't interested.
eventually 4 female writers joined the staff. While making the third round of scripts, the writers' room achieved gender balance, excluding the co
Well, that's what's important. Exactly. Excluding the creators themselves, right? So gender balance is always so important when there's status involved and the men outnumber the women. But when there's no status or if the women outnumber the men, then it's okay. So standard. So standard.
creators themselves. As you can probably tell, there was an adjustment period.
And one of the female writers said, very innocently, like she goes, oh, what if he's like one of those weird guys who likes to on women's faces and there's a long beard?
There was nothing innocent about her saying that. She was putting it out there. She was telling you, we are disgusted about men and their sexuality. There was nothing for this guy here to say that. It's pathetic.
And all of a sudden Justin goes, yeah, those guys are weird.
Yeah, that's all funny, right? So this guy has just been told what he likes is disgusting. He's disgusting. And then he pretends that he's not like that. Typical male behavior, male servant behavior. So you can see what's coming. Come to find out how having female writers affected the show. They said that third season was when the show started going downhill. That's when the female writers showed up.
Because season 3 episode 1 was a surprise airing, this second episode acted as a de facto premiere of the season, and as such achieved the highest viewership of the show at 2.86 million, despite the fact that the actual content didn't exactly blow viewers away. Right off
Really? The content didn't blow viewers away.
the bat, fans were confronted with some of the biggest problems of season 3. For one, it just didn't feel like the same Rick and Morty. The dialogue was wordy and overly scripted. There were prolonged scenes exploring the emotional depths of the cast, and the genius silliness of the first 2 seasons appeared to have been entirely wiped out.
So the ingenious comedy was wiped out. It was overly wordy, and there was a lot of the exploration of feelings, which is boring as shit. That's right. These were female writers, and that's what they injected. And oh yeah, it gets worse.
Now, none of these are necessarily changes for the worse.
Really, you simp. So the fact that the episode were boring, that's somehow not a shift for the worse. Why not?
Every show evolves with time, but it did ensure some serious whiplash for fans who had survived a 2-year drought. Episode 3, titled Pickle Rick, likely requires no introduction. Rick transforms himself into a pickle to get out of family therapy, leading to a series of dangerous and absurd adventures in which he battles rats and a
Family therapy, right. Everyone who watches this my channel knows that therapy is basically telling men to obey women. It's antithetical to men's health. And of course, what? The women writers write about family therapy.
secret Russian agency. Meanwhile, Beth, Morty, and Summer attend therapy with Dr. Wong, addressing their dysfunctional family dynamics. Rick eventually makes his way to the session and admits his avoidance, albeit in his own convoluted way. There was a lot of hype for this episode in the lead up to its airing, since it had been one of the few things previewed back at San Diego Comic-Con 2016. Did the hype pay off? Well, that depends on who you ask. Right now, Pickle Rick sits at 9.2 on IMDb, has earned the #1 spot in many top 10 lists, and even won the show its first Emmy. On the other hand, many argue that this installment was terrible and humorless, with some going as far as to contend that the therapist was a self-insert character for writer of the episode Jessica Gao.
Right. It was humorless. The only reason it did well is because it was the peak of its fandom. And of course, this woman is a self-insert because she's not about the project. She's about herself. And you see Harlan with his arm around her like, please be my girlfriend.
Theorizing that it was her ambition to enter the show through Dr. Wong and dress down Rick for his toxic masculinity. Rick's
There you go. Dress him down for his toxic masculinity, which is exactly what happens in real life therapy for men. So they're feminist and they did a man bashing episode. And gee, the guys found it kind of humorless. Who would have thought?
monologue on the sofa and her monologue responding to Rick's monologue is a true Rorschach test regarding your feelings for the season. If you enjoyed Season 3, you see an incisive analysis of our titular character's motivations, and a subsequent penetrating takedown of his nihilistic life philosophy.
Takedown of the male character from a female character. That's what it is.
If you dislike Season 3, you see the show buying too much into its own hype, and offering nothing but sophistry in place of humor.
In place of humor, exactly. It was humorless. So the gals didn't know how to write humor. Right. Guess what? There was an episode the fans like, and guess what? They thought, in their opinion, it was written by one of the guys.
Something about the whirly-dirly conspiracy just felt like a return to form. It is still an unmistakably Season 3 episode in regards to all the time it spends on the dramatic elements of the show, but the characters felt more like themselves. The plot flowed better, and there were finally some of those moments of genuine comedic inventiveness that fans had come to expect. Many attributed this success to the fact that the script was written by veteran writer Ryan Ridley, while the past 3 episodes had all been penned by the new female hires.
There you go. So the episode that turned out to be funny, of quality, was written by one of the guys. And the ones that blew were written by the girls. That's their suspicion. Right.
As a certain subset of the fan base would become increasingly vocal about. Proceeding in unremarkable episode 6, we have the Rick Lantis mix-up. In a cleverly
I'll get by that because the point is this guy has an over 2 hour long video, but the simple fact is it narrows in every time. They brought these female writers in just because they wanted women around. They didn't care if they could actually write, and it damaged the show. Men build up status to get women. So once they get women, they don't care about the status. And that included these 2 losers, Harland and what's-his-face.
It took the show's plot incredibly seriously, which would have been a fine direction to go, but many OG fans thought it just didn't have anywhere near the same level of wit that the first two seasons did. As I've already mentioned, many of the fans placed the blame at the feet of the new female writers.
There you go. And they would be right, wouldn't they?
Going so far as to target them for penning their least favorite episodes. Harmon, in an interview with Entertainment Weekly, went to bat defending the female additions to the staff.
He went to bat for these women knowing that they sucked. And it's going to bite him on the ass because then there's going to be a Harlan scandal. Right.
I've made no bones about the fact that I loathe these people. It f***ing sucks. And the only thing I can say is if you're lucky enough to make a show that is really good that people like, that means some bad people are going to like it too.
Really? So these people are bad because they called out my simping. Right.
I want to scream at my...
They called out his willingness to wreck his own show, to have women around who don't even like him. That's what they're calling out. And they're bad people. You know, good people lie to you or tell you what you want to hear.
My computer. You idiots, we all write the show together. If you can tell the difference between one writer and another on a show I'm running, I've probably gone so lazy that it hasn't all been blended and refined in the usual process.
Well, shut up, you liar. He said one female writer was a self-insert. So they know better, you loser. You male loser. Okay. The Harmon scandal. I've been calling Harland, but it's actually Harmon. There's a scandal. Well, I bet it involves these female writers.
The post-credit scene of the season 3 finale left fans with an acute sense of hopelessness, and true to Poopy Butthole's word, the show would not be back for a very, very long time. Things were eerily quiet in the wake of the third season. Months passed without so much as a whisper on the future of the internet's favorite series. Then in January of 2018, a scandal struck. Dan Harmon, reflecting on the previous year's earth-shaking MeToo movement, tweeted out on New Year's Day, "This was truly the year of the asshole, myself included. We don't have to make 2018 the year of the mensch, but I hope it can be the year of the not as much of an asshole."
Okay, I'm going to break it down. Dan Harmon got dumped by his girlfriend and then hit on one of his female staff. And it blew up in his face. You see, guys coming on to women, that's bad just because they're guys. That makes you assholes. Trying your luck.
Hashtag realistic goals. In response to this, in a post that raised a lot of eyebrows,
This what this woman looks like? I could see why he hit on her. Yeah.
former community writer Megan Gans quote tweeted him with the message, "Care to be more specific?" Dan Harmon replied a day later, "I didn't want to add narcissism to injury by naming you without permission, but I've talked on my podcast about the..."
Without naming you for permission. Man, what a groveler. What a groveler. So she's coming on and she's ratted this guy out and now she wants him to beg. Right?
lines I crossed. I will talk about it more in any way that you think is just. I am deeply sorry.
No, he's begging. What an idiot. That never works.
Filled with regret and a lot of foggy memories about abusing my position, treating you like garbage.
No, you didn't treat her like garbage, and you weren't abusing your position. Your girlfriend dumped you, and you were just looking for anybody, and she was close by. That's it. And dude, if you figure hitting on her is treating a woman like garbage, that says a lot about what you think about yourself.
I would feel a lot of relief if you told me there was a way to fix it. I'll let you call the shots. Till then, at least know I was an awful boss and a selfish baby.
So just hitting on a woman and trying your luck is an awful boss and selfish?
Gans responded, "You want relief? So do I. I want to watch the first episode of television I wrote again without remembering what came after. Figure out how to give me that relief and I'll return the favor. Harmon
So she's demanding the impossible, right? You disgust me, you low status male. Oh, sorry, he's not even low status, he gained status. You disgusting male. And I want you to grovel some more. She's asking him to grovel some more, right? He's going to do it too.
replied, I'm disgusted and sorry that I stained our show and your talent with my selfish, childish shit. I get that
Stain the show? The show was going downhill because these females can't write worth shit.
I can't erase it, don't want to, but have felt sick about it. I'll reiterate, if and when you want me to do something, a public letter, a cosign on your letter, a book, pamphlet, public whatevering, I will support it. I will nod. I will verify. I will suffer and atone. Megan fired back, I
Wow, what a disgusting piece of shit. This guy is right. He is an asshole. He is a piece of shit.
appreciate your attempts to make amends and
Attempts. In other words, sorry, buddy, not forgiven. I demanded, I ratted you out for doing something that wasn't wrong in the first place. I got you to beg, and once you did your begging, now I'm shutting you down.
your acknowledgement of fault. That doesn't sound as tidy as I forgive you, but that's not my feeling yet. I'm working towards it all the time, for my benefit more than yours.
Yeah, I gotta beg. You gotta beg more, baby. You gotta beg more. Boy, this Harmon guy's a real weasel.
This was a tense period to say the least, and with this vague exchange, Dan Harmon's name was trending all over the news, and for a while it looked like he would be the next male celebrity to be vanquished from the industry due to misconduct.
So coming on to a woman is misconduct. Right. In the meantime, this woman is working for a show. She's trying to tank the show. She doesn't care. She will move on to the next loser.
4 days after the initial Twitter exchange, Harmon spoke on his podcast to atone for his sins and poured his soul out, confessing every detail of what he put Megan through.
And
You must confess to your goddess, man.
so I did the cowardly, easiest, laziest thing you could do with feelings like that, and I didn't deal with them. And in not dealing with them, I made everybody else deal with them. I broke up with my girlfriend, then I went
No, she dumped you, dude.
right full steam into creeping on my employee.
So what is your girlfriend dumped you, you're lonely. So you put your feelers out there and see how if you could get together with one of your female employees. There's nothing wrong with that, really. Nothing wrong with that. This is what's wrong. You saying that's creepy, right? So you're basically saying men are just creeps, period. Well, speak for yourself, you loser. You female worshiping loser. Okay. Now get past the seasons because it doesn't matter what he has to say. They're all going downhill because of the female writers, right? Now Roiland, it's his turn. The other guy begged enough that she let him up, but this guy, he's going down.
3 days after the season 6 finale, Squanch Games released High on Life, a first-person shooter set in a bizarre alien universe.
Oh, yeah, get past that. I don't need to know about the universe. It's
2023, NBC News broke the story that Justin Roiland had been charged with felony domestic battery. And
domestic battery. It's going to turn out to be a lie, right? He's going to be turned out to be vindicated. So, for them to charge that meant that they charged him without evidence.
false imprisonment in connection with an incident that occurred 3 years prior with an anonymous woman he was dating.
Anonymous woman, sorry for cutting it short, but they called it domestic battery. Domestic batteries between couples. This girl wasn't his girlfriend, from what I understand.
He was arrested and released on a $50,000 bond in August 2020 and arraigned in October. A protective order was also filed that prevented Roiland from going within 100 feet of the alleged victim. The Rick and Morty co-creator pleaded not guilty, and since then had quietly undergone several pretrial hearings in the case, including one 4 days after the news emerged. His attorney, T. Edward Wellborn, lambasted the media coverage for the trial, saying, "To be clear, not only is Justin innocent, but we also have every expectation that this matter is on course to be dismissed. Justin..."
If he's innocent, then why was he picked up in the first place? Like, he had to put a 50 grand bond down. In other words, he would have spent his time in jail as an innocent man. Does he get recompensated for that? Or compensated for that? The average person, I can't afford 50 grand. So essentially, I would have been punished, even though I was innocent, if I was in his shoes.
Himself said nothing. And he wasn't the only one. 2 days after the story came to light, there was not a single word uttered from any of the companies Roiland had contracts with. Then 3 days, then 4 days, then a week. Silence from Adult Swim, Hulu, 20th Television, and Squanch Games.
Yeah, they're dumping him. Now, again, I'm letting you guys know ahead of time, he's going to be proven innocent, doesn't save his career. Now, Mr. Pink and Yellow was talking to me, and he says, I bet the female writers were the beginning of it. Because there's the Whisper Network, right? Where they get together and say, hey, here's a good male target to get rid of.
Justin Roiland, who had started out as a down-to-earth geek making outrage bait cartoons, was now the golden goose of the industry, an undisputed titan of the animation world. Dozens of brands, thousands of jobs, hundreds of millions of dollars had all rested on his shoulders for years. But
exactly. And they're willing to throw all that away on a woman's lie. This is why, guys, that there's no get woke, go broke horseshit. These male nerds threw away their careers to have women around who hated their guts. Men would cut off their own balls. They thought it'd get a woman around. And the companies, which are made up of men and women, are going to behave the exact same way to them. They're willing to sacrifice the golden goose simply to destroy me.
But the beatings would keep coming, and eventually more allegations would surface. Former Mad magazine editor Ali Gortz was one of the first to go public with her story. On January 13th, one day after the news of the domestic violence case broke, she tweeted, "I'll say more later. For now, I'll just share the types of funny DMs Justin Roiland would send me." Posted and deleted this tweet last night because
they're ganging up on him. And the tweets are just him giving sexual innuendo. That's it.
I was worried about any backlash. But this dude made me, someone who wrote a Rick and Morty concept album, never watch his show again. Included in the tweet was a screenshot of some of the messages she received from Roiland after she told her hero about the concept album she was writing for the show. Can you write a song about 9 dicks of different sized and ethnic origins hanging above your face, and then in the lyrics describe how they each splatter you with 1 minute later? Sorry, Ali, I'm on my 4th glass of wine. This was all off record. Don't break my trust, you asshole. JK, you're alright.
Joking, you're just alright. Yeah, exactly. So he meant what he said. And what he said wasn't really that bad. He's basically saying, I'd like to bang you. That's all that joke, boiled down to.
After this, another woman came forward. This girl, who verified that she was underage at the time of the exchange, Justin texted her, "You should just run away from home and go into sex slavery, you fucking stupid fucking bitch." Just kidding. On top of this, old clips from the Grandma's Virginity podcast began to resurface, where Roiland's affinity for talking about his attraction to underage girls was showcased to the world.
Look, I'll say, a fucking 14-year-old that looks like she's 18 and big
yeah.
Of course I'm attracted to that.
Ooh, yeah.
That's why this whole Chris Hansen thing, I'm like, you, man. These girls are they're fully developed, and they're they talking online. I want you to
The girls that old men or women pretend to be to lure the files into the house?
Yeah, but they would email photos of what they look like. And the ones I saw were That girl's fully developed woman. Yeah, like
On its own, this can be excused as boundary-pushing comedy from a time where sensibilities were different.
Sensibilities were different just what, a mere 10 years ago? That just goes to show you how bad things have gotten. But it's not really comedy. He's just telling the truth.
When you present this next to several sexually explicit DMs with a minor and then criminal charges, it becomes a lot harder to defend. With this, people started to dogpile with other claims. Fans began turning on Justin, arguing he hadn't contributed to the TV show he had helped create in years. While they would turn out to be correct, it's important to note that they were working entirely off of speculation at this point. But still, the question remains, what would become of Rick and Morty? Roiland's voice was so inextricably tied to the series, both literally and in terms of its creative direction. Would his actions spell disaster for the former pop culture titan? Well, 12 days after the story broke, fans received their answer when Adult Swim announced that they had cut ties with Mr. Roiland, and that his roles as the titular characters of the show would be recast. In March of 2023,
Yeah, they're throwing away the show. Exactly. People are willing to burn things to the ground just to placate a female mob.
the charges of the original case were dismissed due to insufficient evidence. Justin returned to...
Oh, by the way, that underage girl turned out to be 20. She wasn't old enough to drink, but she was old enough to vote. Think about that.
Twitter the same day with a tweet that simply read, "Justice." Attached was his statement on the outcome of the court case. "I have always known that these claims were false, and I never had any doubts that this day would come. I'm thankful that this case has been dismissed, but at the same time, I'm still deeply shaken by the horrible lies that were reported about me during this process. Most of all, I'm disappointed that so many people were so quick to judge without knowing the facts, based solely on the word of an embittered ex trying to bypass due process and have me cancelled."
Not trying to, she did. And thank you for admitting that. That's what MeToo is. It bypasses any kind of legal due process to lynch a man. That's what happened to this guy. He got lynched.
That it may have succeeded, even partially, is shameful. However, now that the legal case has ended, I'm determined to move forward and focus both on my creative projects and restoring my good name. On September 13th, 2023, NBC News published the conclusion of their months-long deep dive investigation in an article that outlined the allegations from nearly a dozen women, who had all come forward against Roiland since the domestic abuse case was announced.
He's turned out to be innocent, and there's a dozen women lying about him. We know that they're lying. So we know from now on that having many, many women accuse a man of something means nothing. It's meaningless.
The article goes in depth on 3 of these victim stories. The first case NBC brought to light was that of a 20-year-old woman from Boston whose name they kept anonymous. In March 2019, Roiland...
She's 20 years old, but we need to keep her name anonymous. Okay?
...messaged her on Tinder. "Hey, what's up, bitch? Just kidding." I do have to just stop here and point out that just because you say JK after something doesn't excuse what you said previously.
That's true, but saying hey bitch isn't a big deal either.
"Hello, can we go shopping and have fun and I'll give you a fashion show and we can get coffee and talk? I think I'm down, yeah. It'd be cool with just hanging and maybe a drink. Just talk and meet you." At that point, the woman mentioned again that she was not legally able to purchase alcohol since she was still 20 years old.
But that's not underage. That's not underage in any state. So why, Gamer from Mars, are you lying and saying that she's underaged? You're not considered underage because you're too young to drink. This woman can vote. She's 18 plus. She's a young adult. So she's not underage in any way. So you, Gamer from Mars, are spreading a lie as well.
"You don't drink ever? Haha, I'm actually not sure if I'm gonna drink either." According to NBC, that evening, Roiland took her out and purchased drinks for her. This was captured in a Snapchat video she recorded, although no archives were provided in the article. She claimed to have gone slightly drunk during this time. Later, Roiland suggested that they go back to his hotel room, where she was pressured
Okay, so she told him she's too young to have drinks, but she drank them anyway. Right, okay. She's she's not a minor, so she made her own choices. This is a high status man. That's who she wants to hang with. There we are.
to perform oral sex on him, despite her initial objections. To quote the alleged
He
victim,
wasn't pressure. He didn't pressure her. He asked her. That's what he did. Right. Now, do I need to go any further? Well, we will a little bit, I guess.
from the moment it happened, I knew that it was not okay. But I felt a lot of different feelings. Like that
This woman got together with a man for coffee and drinks. It's a date. She knows it might lead to sex. So this is not surprising in any way. So this woman is, of course, railroading him. I'll skim ahead to see if he got zapped or not. Okay, the Me Too zapped him. This guy is pretending that it was due to his lack of work ethic.
he ever showed up at all. He often canceled appearances at the last minute or just stayed home without warning anyone ahead of time. While this proved to be a major point of frustration for his fellow creatives, time and time again network executives chose to turn a blind eye to his behavior due to how successful Rick and Morty was for them. But once the court case and allegations were revealed, public pressure became too great and they finally had no other option but to let Roiland go. Despite his importance to the show, at the end of the day, Rick and Morty was bigger than Justin. And when push came to shove, he was booted from his magnum opus after getting Me Too'd.
There you go. After getting Me Too, dude, had nothing to do with the fact that he was a bit of a douche and that he got drunk or didn't show up at work. None of that mattered. He got Me Too. That's it. Well, that's all there is to say. That's all there is to say, guys. These guys, again, they built something that people really loved, guys really loved, and then they sacrificed it all to have women around. And the women who weren't there, who weren't dependent on the show, burnt it to the ground and attacked the male leads. Same old story. The end.